to go Bigfooting anymore. But, you know, if stories are to be believed, then I have the old Yucca Man not too far from me. But
we've been getting some really weird reports out of Big Bear in that area up there. God, I don't know what the hell it is, but it seems to be something similar to a Mothman. There've been a lot of people going missing in that area as well. That Monego Valley, Big Bear.
I didn't realize that was going on up there in Big Bear. They're reporting a Mothman type creature up there.
Yeah, I got some. Well, I've got one witness right now who swears that this being that they've been seeing around their property and one of the neighbor's property had something to do with some of these missing persons. And you know, we looked at the map, and there had actually in the last 4 years there have been 18 people gone missing within a 5-mile radius of this location.
Now, I don't really know exactly where Big Bear is in relation to Big Sur. Have you heard about what's going on, I guess, around Big Sur with the shadow people?
Yeah, I've heard something to that effect. I don't know exactly what. You know, I haven't heard a whole lot. Heard a little bit, though. Yeah, Big Bear is up San Bernardino, up in the mountains. It's about an hour northeast of LA.
So, but there is it's a heavily camped, and there's wooded areas, and it's quite rural, correct?
Yeah, well, but there is a town. I mean, the town of Big Bear is there. It's got a fair sized population, but then, you know, when you get out of the mountain, all the the wooded areas, it's all desert around there, and
right.
So that's Monego Valley, and down in what is that, Yucca or Joshua Tree in there. So
now,
yeah,
are these
there's been a lot of weird stuff.
These 18 people, how many of those people have been found and are there strange missing 411 tie-ins with the way these folks are being found?
Well, that's what I'm trying to find out. I know there have been some remains found, but they're not really sure who it is. They're finding pieces instead of bodies.
Right.
So, we've got an investigator in LA who's willing to go up there for us. So, we're trying to get all this arranged. The witness is a little hesitant, but her girlfriend is willing to help us out. I just want to get an idea of what's going on. I mean, people are seeing this entity, and I don't know what it is.
So this is strictly a Mothman type looking being, or we have Bigfoot and all sorts of other things going on up there in Big Bear?
Well, there have been Bigfoot sightings up there for years. There have been a lot of sightings, but this flying being, this is new. This is something that's been seen in the last 2 years. What happened was this woman's neighbor. People have thought had been a lot of occult stuff going on there, and she kind of advertised herself as a witch, but the house got burned down. She got burned down in it. She died in the fire, and there's nothing there but a slab now, but people have been seeing this flying being in and around the area.
Oh, that's a creepy tie-in.
Yeah, so, that's why I want to look into it. Her friend, who is a friend of mine, called me and requested that I help him out. So, so we're gonna see what we can do. I mean, I can't just go out there, but
right.
I got somebody in LA that's willing to do it. So,
well, yeah, if they're willing to go out there and check it out, then
sure.
I wonder how much time they can spend out there.
Well, he's a retired investigator, so, and he's got his own plane. So he's
nice.
He's got the time to do it. So hopefully we can get a little bit of information. He's supposed to be a pretty good investigator. So I don't know. Butch recommended him. He knew him. I'd probably done some work for him. So we'll see.
I don't know. It's a toss-up. Would you rather run into the dog man or the flying Bruja, the witch out there in Big Bear, right? It's really a toss-up. I don't know.
I don't know. I tell you, these dogman sightings that we've been receiving over the past 2 years in PA, I wouldn't want to run across any of them because these things don't run away. They stand their ground. And this last one we got a couple of weeks ago that happened on the 4th of July, oh, that was scary because this thing tracked them. And they got one guy was a DNR person, so, and it's funny. We've been getting, we've got three Department of Natural Resources people that have contacted us.
Really? And so what are they saying? Yeah. Do they not give their names, or they just want to give the report and whatever details they remember?
We know who they are. I mean, they don't want to release, but we know who they are. But and in fact, I got 2 of those 3 that are willing to do some investigation, of the areas they patrol. Mm. So they know something's going on up there.
Yeah, you kind of wait for, and this sounds really morbid, but the whole deathbed confession situation, it comes up a lot with UFOs as well, but I just wonder if one of these days someone has incredible evidence to the contrary that these things don't exist, and then they're like coming out with something saying, yes, they do, and now that I'm not in this anymore, I don't have to worry about my pension or my name being splattered all over and being called a kook, then they can come out with something. Yeah,
well, that's the same old story. It's who's willing to come forth and tell the truth, and maybe we'll get one of those in these cases. I don't know, but this Chicago thing, and in particular, this last sighting we got was a Chicago PD officer and his partner, and that kind of put a lot of credibility to what is going on here.
Yeah, that was my favorite one.
Yeah, I think it was the best one.
Yeah, and if you wouldn't mind, if we could just touch on that first, it really kind of encapsulates the whole thing. And the fact that they saw it standing still on top of a building really was very creepy.
Yeah, I wasn't the only one people have seen, perched somewhere, but it's like I said again, being a cop, it's more credible. Though this is the second police officer who's made a report now, so.
Yeah, they thought it was some distraught human being in a silly outfit getting ready to jump, right? And they shine the light on it, and off it just shoots right up into the air. And from all the reports that I read on your website, Phantoms and Monsters, it seems like these things don't, just like we were saying about the Dogman, they do not care who sees them. Some of these things are flying only 15 to 20 feet above these folks' heads, which is very, very close. And across the board, it's anywhere from 7 to 11 foot wingspan. The membranous wings. 3 of the reports have the classic red eyes, which of course harkens back to the classic Mothman sightings in Point Pleasant.
Yeah, we've had a good number of these people that have said they've seen the red eyes on this thing, and in particular, the one couple who had this thing go over them, right over top of them, looked back at them as it was flying and turn around. Ugh. And the red eyes, coming to them.
Another creepy aspect was the head being thinner than any human being that these folks had seen. I think there was 2 of the reports that mention, and these are separate reports, that mention the head being thin and even tapered back to, and in one of them almost like I think you mentioned a pterosaur of some sort.
Yeah, we had 2 sightings in Lincoln Park within minutes of each other, and of course they called us as soon as this thing happened. I got one call and Manuel got the other, and they described exactly the same thing. This thin head, looked like human head, but it was thinner. Then the police officer in the last report said it had a thin human head. The body looked like it was an emaciated human. And of course, the one before that, up in Logan Square, he didn't get a look at the face, but this thing was turned away from him, and there was a crest coming off the head that kind of reminded him of a pterosaur. So yeah, I mean, we are getting a few variations in the description, and I'll be quite honest with you, I know there are two of them. There very well be more than that. I think there are at least three.
Yeah, those two that were dancing around each other in front of all those people on the waterfront there. That was an interesting one.
Yeah.
They were not, they're like, hey, everybody's watching. We don't really care. And I think there was only a couple of the reports where, and actually I think the police officers heard a scream, but there was only a couple of them where most of them literally said there was no sound, including when the wings were flapping. If they happened to see that, there was no sound associated with their sighting except for a couple of them.
If I'm correct, I think this last sighting with the police officer is the only one we've had with a scream.
Okay. Yeah.
I may not be correct about that, but I think this very well may be the first one.
Yeah, I think that would add a whole nother level of terror there. It's bad enough you're seeing a 7-foot-tall bat, like a human head and all this strange stuff. Now, another thing that I noticed in the reports, and this also it lends credence to some of these witnesses and their stories, is there is one date and a half an hour time span where this thing was seen twice around the Adler Planetarium. And it was June 23rd, and one was timed 9:30 p.m. and the next one was timed 10 p.m. So these things are busy. I'm just wondering, of course, the big questions are, besides what are they, is where does it come from, and what in the world are these things doing flying around downtown Chicago?
Yeah, that's the big question. I have no idea what it's doing. I mean, we haven't had a sighting now since the 30th of June. A reported sighting, but we've had lapses in time before, so this thing may not even be out there at this juncture. I don't know why it's showing up. The thing that the incidents in Point Pleasant, people were seeing this thing a year before the Silver Bridge collapse, so. It may have nothing to do with any type of harbinger or any type of warning, but then again, people do associate the Mothman with that bridge collapse as being a warning.
Yeah.
So if that's the case in Chicago, then maybe some caution needs to be taken. But then again, we've looked at this every which way but Sunday, and there's no. There's just no connection between the witnesses, the locations. It's not nothing there other than what people are describing. And, I just can't fathom why it's doing it. Now, yesterday, we did see an interesting photograph that was taken in downtown Chicago from the MUFON site. And it almost looked like a portal opening up over the city. Now, I personally believe that these beings are coming from a portal. I don't know where it's at exactly, though there have been portals seen opening up in the Michigan Lake Triangle, the Michigan Triangle, they call it. Green orbs and such coming out of these portals, craft diving into the lake. So, is it coming out of the lake? Well, they seem to be associated with the lake for the most part. Most of the sightings have been on the lakefront. Other sightings have been near water. I don't know. I just don't know what the deal is. I don't know where they're coming from. We had thought there for a while that they were coming from an area around the bridge over Lakeshore Drive at Chicago River, but the last several sightings have been away from that.
And Lon, have you been to Chicago before?
Years and years ago.
Yeah.
A long time.
I was there just a couple years ago when I lived in Ohio, and I have to say, I mean, Absolutely, 100% a busy place all the time, and
Yeah.
people are constantly walking outside. So I could see easily where if there was something anomalous in the sky, that at least we have the situation where, especially with the Chicago PD, those two officers, they had a whole group of people flagging them down saying stop, 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 and then they see this creature. So that lends a lot of credibility to these sightings.
Yeah, it does. And they were told the police officers that they've seen this thing for a couple of days before that. It just so happens this was the first time that anybody saw it perched anywhere.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, that last sighting was excellent.
Yeah, that was definitely my favorite one, and you created the segue without even me having to do it. I thought, I kind of want to talk about the Chicago police officers first. So,
Yeah.
another one of the reports, this is also very fascinating. One person actually thought it was a black helicopter. It was so big.
Yeah, that was a report in the very southern edge of the city. This couple had seen this thing coming out of a copse of trees, and I really don't know what distance it was, but the first thing they thought it was a black helicopter because it was so big. But I don't know what their distance reference was or not, because after they watched it a little bit, they could tell it wasn't a helicopter and it was something actually hovering, and then it started flying. So, and I asked her, the woman, I said, well, did you actually see it fly? She said, the thing actually flew in front of the moon, which was just coming, being able to be seen. It was real early evening. And she said, as it went across the moon, I could tell from the little extra light, background light, that this was some type of flying being. And as they watched it, she said that they both determined it was something that was living, and it was more human than anything else.
How many of the reports have people saying they had a dire feeling? Like a lot of the Dogman reports, people say there's a foreboding about them. It's a very dark feeling. They feel almost depressed and completely terrified and scared. Was there any of that in any of these sightings?
Yeah, most of them have reported some type of foreboding, fear. The last few, not so much, but most of them have had that. I'd say maybe four of the 17 confirmed sightings that we've received possibly didn't have that type of feeling, but the other ones definitely did.
It just seems like we need someone to just basically sit outside at all times. We need to talk Vance Nesbitt into that, right? We're like, hey, Vance, you don't have anything else to do. You don't need to go to work. You need to go sit downtown for a while and just check out the skies for us.
He's been running around downtown a little bit, so I don't know. Maybe he will run across it. It's interesting. People contacted me saying, I've been sitting out and watching for this thing. I thought, oh. Well, that's where you want to spend your time,
right?
Or watch the cam feed coming off the museum and watch downtown all the time. Well, not the lakefront. That's fine with me. I mean, that's what you want to do.
Yeah, it's not a bad idea. It's just it gets tougher, as you know, when the lights go down and the sun is gone. Then everything just becomes very difficult to. Even if you get it on camera, then you're going, well, no one can really tell what that is.
All right.
Well, I guess unless Vance can somehow slingshot himself onto the back of one of these and just find out right where their home is, considering the fact, though, that this is definitely a flap. There's no other word better to stamp on this because of the number of reports in such a short amount of time. It's important for people to know that this is not the first time this has happened in Chicago. This also happened back in 2011. There was, I think it was 3 different reports in that year.
Yeah, there were 3 reports. The first report was actually about 10 blocks east of Midway Airport. And that was the sighting where the photograph was taken. And then there was another sighting over by Miller Park, which is actually downtown, and or close to downtown. Then the third one was over near Hyde Park by the by University of Chicago. Now those are three different sightings that were within 3 months of each other. But after that, there was nothing. So I don't know. The photograph that was taken actually doesn't really look like any of the sightings we're getting now, because that photograph, it looked like it was some type of large animal, and it was a brownish color, though it did have the bat-like wings. It just didn't match what we're hearing now.
Yeah, because some of the reports that you've been getting recently, it's almost like they were saying, at least to them, their brain was telling them that the legs were drawn up underneath it, and they couldn't really see a lot of the features like that. And in that photo, it almost looks just like a classic bat, if you will. And it's hard to tell because it is flying, and I'll make sure to put all of these links in the show notes for everybody to find these reports. But yeah, I don't know what to make of that photo, because I wish, of course, you could go to the location and see how far the person was standing from the statue, how tall the statue is, but then again, you have to guess as far as how far away the quote unquote bat was from that statue. So it's really hard to tell.
Well, the witness who took the photograph was actually from Tasmania. And they mentioned that it looked like a sugar glider, what they have seen in Tasmania. Well, a sugar glider, about as big as your hand, So they said it looked like an oversized sugar glider. This thing really, could have been just a few feet long and not that far out. It's hard to tell how high it was and what its actual size was. But it in a way, it did kind of look like a flying squirrel or a bat or something to that effect. But it didn't really look like anything we're seeing. And in fact, the other two sightings, the one in Miller Park and the one by the University of Chicago, their descriptions were closer to what we're seeing now than that first sighting.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if Amazon is selling sugar glider drones. Is that the new thing?
I don't know.
Yeah,
we looked into this. We looked into these claims of being a drone or somebody in a squirrel suit flying around, jumping off buildings in Chicago. Well, they don't call it the Windy City for nothing. The drafts in Chicago are pretty dangerous, and this guy jumping off a building, going 100 mile an hour down toward the river, is not going to be doing too many maneuvers down there, like that one sighting we had with the woman and her daughter, where the thing was actually flying along the river and was maneuvering up and under the bridge and around. There's no way that somebody in a suit could do that, let alone a drone. So, it's, the people who have seen this thing, they definitely believe it was a living thing, a living being. And of course, with the eyes, the red eyes, and the way it moved its head, the way it flapped its wings occasionally, it did come off as being something living.
Did anyone, and I didn't read it from what I saw, but has anyone mentioned, because the first thing that comes to my mind is the movie Jeepers Creepers. That's just the first thing that pops into my head. Did anyone come forward and say, oh, it looked just like that? I know one guy just said Batman. He just simply said it was, like Batman. So.
Yeah, the Jeepers Creepers thing I've heard in other reports, but nothing associated with Chicago.
Yeah, let's hope it's nothing like that, especially in the old facial features. I'm going to be not going to Chicago anytime soon if that's the case. No, thank you. No tunnels, no subterranean tunnels for me. So what do you think's next here? Are we just waiting to see what comes across your desk per se as far as these sightings go?
Yeah, that's about all I can really do unless somebody comes up with another suggestion on how we can look into this. We've been bantering myself, Nat, Manuel, Vance, and a few others. We've been bouncing this back and forth, trying to get a fix on maybe coming up with some type of way of determining what this thing is, where it's coming from. But at this point, with the information we have, and look, we've gotten good information, but there's just nothing to really pinpoint this thing. Just like it was in Point Pleasant. That one in Point Pleasant was much more aggressive. This thing was. So because it was coming after people, and there was that one encounter inside the TNT plant, though it didn't make any type of moves toward the witnesses. But there were instances where people were terrified when it tried to fly over cars or whatever. So but that isn't really happening here. It just seems like it's coming out for a short period of time, showing itself, and then going back to where it came from.
And I did a little Google search, just, pretending that I didn't know you and I didn't know phantoms and monsters existed. So I just Googled, I saw a huge bat flying over Chicago. I just Googled something like that. And, your stuff comes up very, very first. So it's not hard for me to imagine that you are getting these reports funneled to you. As far as the reports go themselves, how many of these folks have you actually talked to yourself on the phone or on Skype or anything?
I personally have talked to 5 witnesses. Manuel has talked to possibly 5, maybe 6. And the others are just reports that either 3 came through MUFON, and the others were just reports that we got by email or, corresponded with the witnesses by email.
Well, I certainly hope that this isn't the same, if you want to assume that the Mothman in Point Pleasant was some kind of a bringer of death and destruction. If you want to tie that in, that's assuming that happened, but hopefully nothing even close to that happens in Chicago. I hope it's not for a reason, although we don't really need a reason except for the fact that we just want to find out what this is.
Yeah, I mean, that's my main concern right now. I just want to know what it is and, why it's flying around the city. But, there have been people that have contacted me that are scared to death now of what may happen. And that wasn't my intention, but, anytime you make a reference to the Mothman, that's the first thing people think.
Right. Well, and you being who you are and what you do and the website that you run is trying to get these reports coming in. It's all about the truth and reporting, and it wouldn't be doing anyone a service if you left out parts of any report.
Well, the reports themselves, and this is one thing that's really impressed me with these witnesses, and Emmanuel's told me the same thing. They are very forthcoming, and they don't embellish on what they tell you. In fact, when they, most of them, those that have called me, well, all of them that have called me, the first thing they tell me is what exactly they saw, and then I try to lead with some questions, maybe to get more details, and they just will not change their story. And that's fairly unusual. With witnesses of cryptids or other strange activity. Some people can be led a bit, but these witnesses it was kind of a shock for them, their eyes were open and they were really concentrating on it. And I think that's a big reason why we haven't gotten any photos, because this thing moves by so quickly, alarms them so much, they're not even thinking about taking a photo of it.
Yeah, I talk about that all the time, that if you have something like that, a Bigfoot or a Mothman-looking creature, or heaven forbid a dog man, who always seems to be in everybody's face, you're not thinking of, oh my gosh, let me just post this to Facebook and get that snapshot on Instagram. No, that's just not crossing your mind.
Yeah, and as far as the word getting out on these sightings, I'll be honest with you, at this point now, I don't really want the media blasting it all over the airwaves or putting it in the paper or anything, because then we're going to get a lot of these copycat reports, and then we're going to have issues on what we're really dealing with. When we get these firsthand witnesses contacting us because they're concerned enough to go onto Google and try to find some way of reporting or some way of telling what they saw, well, those are the reports you want. And at this point, I think most, if not all, these reports we've received have been people who have actually seen something.
And Lon, has the mainstream media in any way, shape, or form picked up on this?
Well, I heard the other night, I was talking to a radio show host on Wednesday, and he commented to me that his wife had seen something on their news. I believe they live in Wisconsin, though. I don't think, as far as the Chicago media, I think they've kind of stayed away from it. We have discussed this with a few well-known people in the Chicago news business, and they kind of act like they don't know what you're talking about.
Well, like you said, I think that can be a good thing, because once it gets out there, you just get the people that are going to want to poke fun at the entire thing and just come up with their own story to add to it.
Yeah, and at this point so far, I haven't received that much ridicule or anything negative about this. It seems people are really, buying into what's going on, which is good. I mean, that's very rare in this business. When I'm making a report, I'm usually going to get somebody who's going to come back and, a skeptic or someone who just wants to, like you say, ridicule. No, that's not happening here. So
that's really good to hear. And is that Manuel? Is he there in Chicago?
Yeah, he lives in Chicago. Manuel Navarrete. He runs UFOclearinghouse.com.
Great, wonderful. That's good to hear. You got a couple of different boots on the ground, Manuel and Vance there. So that is very good. Well, let's let everybody know where they can find you, and of course where they can hear you. That Arcane Radio there with Butch and Sean.
Yeah, Arcane Radio, arcaneradio.com is, we're on every Wednesday night at 10 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time. And, of course, you can find me on phantomsandmonsters.com. And my books can be found on Amazon. Just search my name, Lon Strickler, or search Phantoms and Monsters, and they'll come up.
Are you working on a new book right now, Lon? Are you too busy with the other stuff?
Yes, I am. And it's going to involve the Chicago incidents. I'm pretty set on making the book on subject matter being extra-dimensional beings. And that includes what's going on, I believe, what's going on in Chicago.
Now, does your thinking for this kind of the tendrils for that, does that also touch to Dogman and Bigfoot, or are you just trying to focus in on the one thing for right now?
Yeah, I'm going to try to stay away from the Dogman, Upright Canine, Bigfoot, unless there's a particular story where it really kind of demonstrates that there's something strange, really strange or supernatural about the sighting. Mm-hmm. It's going to include the Mothman in this incident, other incidences, some alien encounters, some of the other beings I've investigated, the flying manta ray type beings, some type of bio UFO sightings, something, things along that line.
I was just listening to Dave Schrader and Jimmy Church talk about their time at Emaciated Ranch, and Dave Schrader himself has said he saw some kind of a biomechanical living but yet mechanical craft out there.
Yeah, there have been reports over the years, well, all over the country. I've received all kinds of strange reports. These bio-engineered craft. If people that are taking photographs or looking at these things and, blowing it up and taking a close look, I mean, they don't look like regular craft. They look like a blob or something up there in the sky that's changing shape or, changing colors. I've seen several of those.
Yeah, they were going off for a good hour about the place. And
yeah,
I mean, these seem like two no-nonsense guys to me. I've been listening to both of those guys for quite a long time, and they have nothing but incredible and positive things to say about the Emaciated Ranch. So I would love to get out there one of these days.
Yeah, me as well. I mean, there's the phenomena that's associated with a place, and as far as Mount Adams, I mean, it's pretty remarkable stuff.
Well, it makes you wonder about the whole tie-ins with, again, it touches back to some of the things that people will bring up with the missing 411, like the granite, the water, what's a substrate there, and then you start wondering about certain areas that just have higher energy.
Yeah, and here in Pennsylvania, there seems to be a lot of areas like that. I mean, we get some very weird reports here, and are they portals, or are they just hot spots, or we just don't know why a certain phenomena happens in certain areas. And of course, Seth Breedlove's going to be doing this movie about the Chestnut Ridge, which is just crazy, all the stuff that's seen up along the Chestnut Ridge. So yeah.
Lon, what about UFO reports? Maybe they're not coming to you, but maybe they're on the MUFON site or New Fork or one of these other reporting agencies. Is there any increase in UFO reports in the area of Chicago? And technically, I realize that the Phantom is unidentified flying object, but I'm just talking about a craft of some sort being seen out there now.
Well, that's something that Butch and I have discussed. The UFO activity in and around Chicago has always been pretty heavy. And I think it has a lot to do with the lake and some of the things people see on the lake. But for whatever reason, during this flap, since the end of March, it has really waned. Now, I don't know if that's particularly because of, this incidents are going on in Chicago with this being. I don't know, but it has waned off. It's, I guess it is what it is, but it's very strange. And of course, there have been some, I don't know the full story of this. I just know what I've been told. There have been flying being sightings up near Milwaukee as well during this period. So there's only been a few from what I understand, but there have been some type of flying being seen up there also.
Maybe something to do with that water. I wonder what's really under these bodies of water.
It very well may. There's been a lot of talk about Lake Michigan for a long time, a lot of weird stuff that goes on. I don't know if it's like the effect out in the Bermuda Triangle. I don't know. I don't know what it is. I think the Bermuda Triangle is an entirely separate issue.
Yeah.
I think that's more natural than it is supernatural. But as far as the Lake Michigan, I don't know. And another thing about these incidents in Chicago, this, as far as I know, and I've looked into this, this has got to be, in my opinion, the biggest largest group of sightings of this type of being since Point Pleasant. So maybe we are dealing with something important here.
I'm wondering
it just seems that way.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm just wondering if it is tied into the water at all. And all of these reports are coming from land, and they seem to go out over the water and around the bridges. I'm waiting for a report to come in from someone out on the water, and maybe they get a better glimpse of where these things come from or where they go. Or
Well, it's interesting. I have received reports over the years in and around Mason County and counties south of there, and even over across the river into Ohio, of Mothman reports. People that are encountered flying beings that look just like Mothman, or what the description was of Mothman. And it's always got something to do with water. And in fact, in Mason County, they was at the Kanawha River that comes into Point Pleasant, empties into the Ohio River. There have been incidences upriver as well. And there's a smaller river south of there where I received a report about 6 or 7 months ago of a woman who had an encounter with something that she described as a Mothman-like being as well. So, these things do happen. We've had these gargoyle sightings up in Pennsylvania, up in Butler County in particular. We hadn't had any of those for several years, but we've had 2 supposed sightings during the same period of time that this has been going on in Chicago. I don't know why that's going on. It just seems like it's ramped up. Yeah.
That's like in the Avengers movie when they rend the hole in the sky, and like you said, it's like a portal, and then everything's just dumping out of it, just unleashed upon the earth, right?
Yeah, I mean, the flying, the flying beings or flying anomalies reports have picked up, but areas other than Chicago.
I'm just waiting for one to fly over my house. I'm like, I swear I'll have the camera ready. I'll have the GoPro out and the iPhone in 4K. Lon, have you had any reports of these things while they are flying, or if they happen to be stationary like the cops saw? Are they holding anything? I mean, are they out hunting people's dogs, or, is there any report of them actually hanging on to something? Are they carrying anything?
No, nothing. I haven't heard anything associated with carrion hunting or, attacking anything.
Yeah, I just wonder what in the world they're doing down there, so that's very strange. If it starts happening in Vegas, then I'll know. I'm like, well, maybe it's the whole apocalypse thing coming. I don't know. Keep saying it.
Well, they marijuana's legal out there now, so maybe some start seeing some.
That's true. Yeah, they're busting the old gummy bears out, and you're like, I think you took too many of those gummy bears. Yeah. Well, Lon, I want to thank you so much for coming on for the update, and I would love to have you on anytime anything like this is coming up, and we just need to hop on real quick and give people the update. But again, it's phantomsandmonsters.com, but I will make sure to link all of these reports that you have collated. So thanks for all your hard work on this. It can't be easy to get I also have the newsletter, which everyone can go sign up for free, but I get that every day, and I definitely love checking that out.